Okay, so when I say the word Cthulhu, what's the first thing that pops into your head? Probably a giant tentacled monster, right? Rising from the ocean. It's one of the most iconic images in all of horror. But what if I told you that the analysis we're digging into today says that whole image gets the point totally wrong? In fact, it argues that H.P. Lovecraft's most famous story isn't really about a monster at all. It's a deep philosophical argument. So yeah, let's get into it. All right, let's just start with this question because it really is the key to this whole explainer. What if the creature, the big tentacle-faced guy, is just a symbol for something else? Something way, way more terrifying? What if the real horror has been hiding in plain sight the entire time? This is where we stop talking about a spooky story and start a real philosophical deep dive. And here it is. This is the central idea. The Call of Cthulhu isn't just trying to give you nightmares. It's trying to humble you. It's a takedown of our own self-importance, this deep-down belief we all have that humanity is the main character of the universe. The story suggests that our entire existence, everything we think and feel, is just a tiny, accidental flash in a universe that's ancient, huge, and does not care about us one bit. You know, this idea actually has a name. Cosmic indifference. It's the bedrock of Lovecraft's whole philosophy. It's not that the universe is evil or hates us. It's just that we are so ridiculously insignificant that we don't even show up on the radar. This is the great silence astronomers talk about with the Fermi paradox. Universe isn't empty. We're just not important enough to be part of the conversation. So with that cheery thought in mind, let's start looking for clues. Our first clue is an external one. It comes from the place where Cthulhu supposedly sleeps, the impossible alien city of R'lyeh. And this isn't just some creepy backdrop. It's a physical argument against everything we think we know about reality. The story goes out of its way to describe the city's architecture as just wrong. What this does is it causes something philosophers call ontological shock. That's basically a fancy term for the mental crisis you have when your entire understanding of what's real just completely falls apart. These impossible angles are a lot like modern scientific anxieties about things like dark matter or higher dimensions, stuff that's all around us but totally invisible. The city's existence is proof that our human logic is, well, pretty fragile. The reason it's so wrong is because of something called non-Euclidean geometry. The simple version, it's the math of shapes and spaces that shouldn't be able to exist in our world. You can think of it as the geometry of other dimensions. R'lyeh is built out of this stuff, and that's why simply looking at the city is enough to break a human mind. It's like a doorway to a terrifying new realization. And this is the result. This quote just nails it. Our minds are built to operate inside a Euclidean cage. That's the simple, predictable, three-dimensional world we know. R'lyeh shatters that cage. To see it is to be forced to accept that our entire perception of reality is just a tiny, flimsy bubble, and there are things outside that bubble we were never meant to understand. So the takeaway here is that R'lyeh isn't just a place. It's a symbol for everything that exists beyond our ability to understand. It's the ultimate other. You can't put it on a map, you can't conquer it, you can't even really look at it without going mad. It's basically a giant monument to our own intellectual limits. Let's move on to our next clue, because this is where it starts to get even weirder. Okay, so if the impossible city is the horror outside of us, our second clue takes a hard turn and reveals a horror that's buried deep inside us. And this is where the story gets really personal, and honestly, a lot more unsettling. The argument here is that this huge and different universe isn't just out there. There's a reflection of it right here, in our own DNA. The story hints at this through an idea called biological atavism. That's when ancient, primitive traits from way back in our evolutionary past can suddenly pop up again. It suggests that the monsters aren't some alien species. In a very real way, they're our own ancestors. This slide just flips our whole idea of evolution upside down. We like to think of ourselves as the end goal, right? The pinnacle. But this perspective says that humanity is just a temporary, fragile mutation. Those loathsome primordial life forms, they aren't just our past. They're the default setting. We're the brief exception, not the rule. And that leads to this truly chilling thought. The threat isn't coming from another planet. As the source material says right here, the great old ones are already inside us. They are a dormant piece of our own evolutionary history, a genetic taint buried deep down, just waiting for the right moment to reawaken. And this is the devastating payoff to this whole line of thinking. The beast that we're so terrified of and the observer studying it, which is us, are actually the same thing.
The horror isn't something out there to be fought. It's something inside us that we could regress back into. We are literally carrying the seeds of our own monstrous destruction in every single cell of our bodies.
So, we've looked out into an unknowable cosmos, and we've looked inward at our own terrifying biology. For our final clue, we're going to connect this 100-year-old story to the very real crises we're all facing right now. It turns out we might be the ones forcing the stars to align.
So the original story, written way back in the 1920s, talks about these cultists performing strange rituals to wake up Cthulhu when the stars are right. It's this prophecy of a world-ending apocalypse. And for a long, long time, that was just a story, a vague, far-off kind of dread.
But what if we are the cultists now? The argument is that our modern world is performing the ritual not with magic, but with industrial hubris. The rising sea levels, the ancient pathogens being released from melting permafrost. We are unintentionally performing the very rituals the story warned us about.
And here's the kicker, that fictional dread from the 1920s is now being confirmed by the hard scientific data of the 2020s. The prophecy isn't about some mythical space monster anymore. It's about the very real, very predictable collapse of our planet's systems we have pushed way past their breaking point.
This reframes our whole environmental crisis in such a powerful way. Nature itself is the great old one. It's a power on a planetary scale that is ancient, totally indifferent, and has zero concern for whether we survive or not. It doesn't need us to believe in it. We've provoked it, and now it's starting to wake up. Okay, so we've looked at all the clues, the external threat of reality we can't understand, the internal threat of our own biology, and the modern threat of our own actions. It's time to bring it all home for the final verdict.
So here it is, the answer to our very first question. Cthulhu is not a monster made of flesh and tentacles. Cthulhu is a metaphor. It's the personification of every huge, terrifying force that is completely and totally beyond human control. Even the way Lovecraft writes, with all that dense, eldritch language, it's all part of it, like a ceremonial robe that forces us to feel the suffocating weight of these ideas. So what are the real monsters this story is actually about? Well, it's our cosmic insignificance in a universe that doesn't know we exist. It's the primordial horror show encoded in our own DNA. And it's the consequences of a collapsing climate that we started but can no longer stop. We're scared of these things because they're the ultimate proof that we are not in charge. And maybe, just maybe, the story suggests that not knowing is actually a survival skill. Our failure to really grasp the full scope of these truths, our merciful ignorance, it isn't a flaw. It's a biological defense mechanism. It's like a psychological firewall that protects our sanity from a reality we just didn't evolve to comprehend. Because maybe consciousness itself was the real accident.
And so we end right here, with what might be the story's most chilling and profound statement. The call of Cthulhu isn't a psychic message from a sleeping god. It's the rhythm of an extinction event we're already living through. It's the constant, quiet hum of an indifferent universe. And the answer to that call is the vast, empty silence that confirms just how insignificant we are. A silence that, for the sake of our own sanity, humanity was probably never meant to break.